This is an eval that I have been working on for months now. This is the CMMG Dissent. This is a departure from some of the things that CMMG is known for, but it takes advantage of all the technology that they've been developing over the course of the last couple of years. And I'm very excited to talk to you guys about my time on the CMMG Dissent. That's Dissent spelled with an I. I'm from the Midwest. I'm sorry. The Dissent is a compact PDW recently released by CMMG with the objective to utilize the strengths of the AR platform while eliminating some of its shortcomings. For instance, the recoil system is no longer reliant on a buffer tube, and as such, the firearm includes a Picatinny section for attaching your own brace or stock. While the lower half of the firearm is built around the Mark IV design, the upper has been completely reworked to house a compact action with a reduced carrier. That carrier runs off two spring-driven guide rods, but it is still a direct impingement operating system, replaced with a non-reciprocating forward charging handle that latches at the front position. The reverse side is also cut to accept a charging handle for the Dissent was meant to be a very short PDW, and as such sports a 6.5-inch barrel. I'll have the remainder of the specs on screen for anybody who wants to nerd all over the place. And of course, the upper is finished out with one of their zeroed comps. It's a linear compensator that we've covered previously on the channel. Shifting gears to the lower. As previously mentioned, the Dissent is designed to accept AR host lowers should you want to roll your own and just get an upper. That said, the Dissent lower is tricked out with CMMG's zeroed accessories that we've covered previously. The trigger is a TriggerTech ARD, which was designed specifically for the Dissent in collaboration with CMMG and TriggerTech. It's a two-stage blade-style trigger with a very unconventional break, but not really in a bad way. As you've probably figured out by now, this is the 300 blackout variant of the firearm, but 5.56 and 5.7 variants are currently available, with more to come in the future. I got a lot rolling around up here today, and it's led me to be a little bit discombobulated. That, and I'm on a timer because there's a hurricane a-coming. Go rain, go rain, go rain. What I'm asking for is I've got a concept that I'm trying to formulate and finalize and then put into action all at once, and sometimes that turns out really good, and other times it doesn't, just falls flat on its face. So please give me a little bit of slack on this one. I'm going to try. So the thing is this. When you watch a firearms eval like this one of the pieces of data that you might be looking for is how accurate the firearm is, because that's going to dictate how you're going to use it. For instance, if you're just going to go out and mag dump in trash, it doesn't really matter if it's a 5 MOA gun or not, okay? But if you're trying to shoot little tiny varmints or something like that, yeah, it matters on whether or not that gun's super accurate or not. I would submit to you that at a certain point, the focus should shift from how accurate the gun is and looking at the minutia of the groups and measuring them and nitpicking them and things like that, to does this gun or is this gun capable of stabilizing a decent sampling of loadings that are available for that chambering on the market? And I don't know what that number is. I don't know what the barrel length is, things like that. And it could be completely arbitrary. I'll probably pick one. I'll probably pick like 8 inches or something like that. And anything below 8 inches, we're going to stability test the gun as far as different loadings of ammunition are concerned. So the reason I think this is important is because, in my opinion, 300 blackout is a 200 and N cartridge. And I'm not saying that you can't do much better work with it than that. But if we're intellectually honest about that, we're looking at that kind of performance out of a 300 blackout gun. We're talking light bullets that are going pretty fast. So we're talking like 110 grain or lighter bullets, something like that. And we're talking about longer barrels. I would say that if you're going for that sort of thing, then most people are like, hey, you know what? I already got a safe full of 5.56 guns. And if I want that kind of performance, why the heck am I just not going up to 308, or might as well go for all the money and go to 6.5 Creedmoor at that point in time? I would say that a lot of 300 blackout builds look a lot more like this guy than those super long barreled guns. And in my opinion, I think it's more important to know, even though we're going to do accuracy on this gun, is this gun capable of stabilizing a selection of loadings that are available on the market? So what I've got here is I've got a Fast Boy. This is a 125 grain loading. I've got a 150 grain loading. This is my pick. This is my go-to because I have a lot of it and it just does a really good job. It's right in the middle. So right between a really Fast Boy and a subsonic, which we have over here. This is a 220 grain subsonic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take 2 of these and stuff them. So the subsonics are gonna be last. The 150 grain in the middle. And then our Fast Boys right on top. And I'm just gonna poke some holes in some paper really quick. And we're gonna look at those holes and see, are they nice little round holes or do they look kind of trashy? And if we man bear pick it, we're loaded. All right, supers, subs. I just hope they're all on the paper. Now this is all I'm gonna use this target for today, so we're just gonna go ahead and rip it off so I can bring it closer to you guys so we can analyze it. So I basically worked myself down. So supers, subs. So 125, 150, 220. And what we see here is clearly nice round, what I would call cookie cutter holes, where they've literally, we have to be careful here because the slower the round, the less tearing of the paper, the less cutting of the paper, and the more pushing through of the paper you see, the slower the bullet goes. So this is what I'm going to call a cookie cutter hole, which means that it literally just took a slug of cardboard and just pushed it out the backside. Same thing with the 150 grain, but we've got a little bit more tearing here because these are going a little bit slower. I will roll the chronograph data that I took previously in. I just don't feel like wasting minutes of your guys' life shooting at air through a chronograph. So you'll see the data on screen for each loading that I took previously. And then when we get down here to the 220 grain, we've got substantially more press through than tearing or cutting of the paper. But they're still round. And the important thing is that we don't see anything that looks oblong, as in there's a lot of yaw to the bullet. That thing is going to spin this way, and it also is going to do this through the air as it completes a circle around that center of mass. So that can be disrupted, particularly when we're talking about anything that's going close to the sound barrier and slowing down rapidly. And that would classify as a subsonic round, or it would be a transonic round that's going subsonic. And in doing so, there's some inherent instabilities there that we won't get into as far as the physics is concerned. But these look fine. That gun is fully capable of stabilizing. Basically, I don't have a 110 grain to test, but I have no reason to believe that if it stabilizes a 125 grain, that it won't do a 110. And now we're going to dump into some trash, specifically this van right here. And what we're going to be doing is a magazine compatibility test, and I've done some magazine compatibility tests in the past, but the last one I did was on 300 Blackout as well, and some people had some very strong opinions about my strong opinions, and I will admit Guys, I'm a biased individual. There are things that I just don't like. And I try to filter that out to a degree, but I am me. But at the same time, I have a YouTube channel to run, and that is run through the audience. So I have to make the audience happy. You guys were not happy with the way I conducted the last magazine compatibility test, so we're going to build it out a little bit more today than we did in our last one. There, I said it. That was a whole mouthful. But this test is important for this gun in particular because when we did our initial eval, trying to determine what the optimum port size, as in when this thing was a prototype and it was here, trying to figure out the optimum port size for the gun to run a large variance of ammunition, the malfunction that consistently showed itself was towards the end of a magazine. We had some lag issues with magazines and the feed angle and things like that. I don't think that you need dedicated 300 blackout magazines. However, many companies have gone out and produced them. Most of the time, in my opinion, those are produced for the purpose of taking more money from you because they say 300 blackout on them instead of 556, and people do that sort of thing. Whatever. It's your money. You spend it your way. I learned something today. But yeah, this gun seems as though it will work with just about any magazine that you got. Perfect. I'm currently shooting subsonic ammunition, and I purposefully did not properly gas this gun so that I could induce this malfunction for the purposes of talking about my critiques. So I only have one critique over this whole gun, and that is that there is no way to battery assist this weapon. So there's no forward assist button that induces the bolt to go forward. There is no swoop out of the bolt that allows me to use my thumb to push the bolt forward into battery should we have a malfunction like this. So doing an analysis of myself, we have to ask a relevant question, and that is that important? And I would say that obviously it's important to me or I wouldn't be talking about it, right? But I'm willing to accept that my perspective may be out of touch with the average consumer. And I would say that if you use trends in the industry as an analog for what the consumer wants, I would say probably not important at all, because otherwise forward assists wouldn't be falling off of guns and reciprocating charging handles would be all the rage. That said, I would like the opportunity to be able to battery assist the firearm if necessary. And I think that CMMG is in a unique position to do just that, and by adding a simple functionality to the gun, also put themselves out of reach of some of their competitors. And let me explain. It would be relatively easy for them to mount an optional, perhaps threaded, bolt-mounted charging handle on this thing. And you're like, well, that sounds weird. Let me explain. There are typically and traditionally two things that are in the way when it comes to adding such functionality to an AR. The first being the forward assist, which this gun does not have, the whole reason we're here. The second thing would be the geometry of the shell deflector is right there. Well, this shell deflector is not integral to the machining of the upper receiver. This is bolted on there. So it is conceivable that they could take a notch out right there that would allow a optional bolt-mounted charging handle to be able to pass past the receiver wall. And that would not only make our AK brethren very happy, right? But also allow us to kick that gun shut in the event that it is absolutely necessary. If you remember back to my last video on a CMMG product, it was on their AR revamp, and I had some things to say about the way they did the rail, because you basically ended up having to choose what you wanted to mount to it. You could either have iron sights or you could have an IR laser illuminator type thing. There's enough space, because they have included the full-length top rail on there, that you don't have to choose which accessories you put on there. There's plenty of room on here for a vertical grip, although we don't really need it because we have a hand stop here and room for a light. Obviously, a big space right here for an optic should we want it, without the need to eliminate our iron sights. So good on CMMG for including those features. There is enough relief here to be able to operate the charging handle without digging your hand off of your laser as well. So just throwing that out there, this is a pursed 3. So anything of similar size should be fine. There is just enough space to add that on there. To be clear, I think that CMMG did a fantastic job on this gun, especially moving into new territory for them. I'm going to give the thing a 9 out of 10. And I know that I don't normally use that system of measurement, but I want to be completely clear that what I said about the inability to battery assist the gun should not be misconstrued to say that I don't like the gun, okay? This is the product launch this past week. And when I hear product launch, I think the beginning. This is not complete. The line is not complete. I'm interested to see what they do with the momentum that they've created and where they end up going. So anyway, special thanks to you guys for tuning in this long and listening to me ramble about things. And also, big shout out to our Patreon and Subscribe-Star people who paid the ammo bill for this one, because 300 blackout ammunition is not cheap. Thank you very much for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you on a future video here at the VSO Gun Channel. And you should see our people from Patreon and Subscribe-Star on screen right now.